Hi, and welcome to an overview of PiFire. So I'm going to do a brief overview in this video and cover just the high-level topics of how to use PiFire and some of its basic features. So first things first, once you get PiFire set up on your Raspberry Pi, you want to navigate over to your IP address for your Raspberry Pi, or if you have a domain associated with it, you can do that too. So I have mine at 168.10.147. Alright, so this is running on a Raspberry Pi 2W right now, but it's still running the simulated version, so it's not actually hooked up to any real hardware at the moment. So you're just going to see simulated numbers when we run this. But this is what the dashboard looks like. This is what you are going to see when you first start up PiFire. And you'll see this dash that has information about the temperature of the grill, the temperature of the food probes, probe 1 and probe 2. You've got some buttons here to control or configure the different temperature probes. So this little cog here will take you to settings. And then you also have some things like notifications for temperatures. So you can set, say, notification for the grill temperature. Hey, I want to set the set point to 167 to notify me when we hit this temperature. Okay, and then you will have also a history graph here that gives you a graph of the temperature history. We have a timer that allows you to set up a timer with notifications that will notify you when a timer completes, so that if you're cooking something that is time dependent, you can set that timer up. New to PiFire in this generation is the Pellet Manager and the pellet sensor. So here you can click into this and sort of track what pellets you're using currently, or look at what you've looked at in the past, or what you've used in the past, I should say. And then last is the event log down here at the bottom. This is a way for you to see what's happening behind the scenes with PiFire. It just shows you the different events that have been occurring. At the very bottom we have the control panel, and this is where you actually control the grill from. So we have a start button on the left, and this will put the grill into startup mode. So this is the normal sort of process to get the grill going. Once you do that, you're going to see the temperature start to register here. And then the monitor mode, this is if you have another grill controller that you're running in parallel with PiFire. You can monitor the temperatures of the grill and the food probes and get notifications as well without having to control it. You could also just run this mode anytime, just to check the temperatures of the grill, etc. And then there is the stop button, and this is the default mode. It just stops the grill. Alright, so let's go ahead and start the grill up. So we press the green start button, and what this does is we'll start up the fans and augers and igniter, and it's going to run the igniter for 4 minutes approximately to get the pellet started. And you'll see that we've got temperature readings coming through. We've got grill temperature readings rising up. We've got the food probe readings. Again, these are all simulated right now, so they're not real. So that's obviously would behave a little bit differently if it was real. But yeah, you can see that, that your main indicators are here. If you wanted to watch the history in a graph form, you just go ahead and click on the history, and there you have it. You can see all of the temperatures in the food probe, the grill, in a nice graph form that actually refreshes every 3 seconds approximately. kind of shows you where you're at during a grill or cook. While we're here, just show you a few other features of the history page. So you have ability to turn off some of these just by clicking on them. So if I want to turn off, let's say, one of the food probes, I can do that. Maybe I want to turn off the set point. I can click here and turn off the set point and just look at the data that I want to see. Maybe I only want to see just the grill temperature, so you can do that as well. If you're just wanting to sort of freeze the history in place and just look at it at one point in time, you can turn off the auto refresh by clicking that button, and it'll freeze, so it's not actually getting sort of real-time updates anymore. You can also delete the history, so this deletes the history file so that kind of blanks it out. And then you can also download the data to a CSV file. This allows you to open it into your favorite spreadsheet program, something like Excel or maybe OpenOffice. And then at the bottom here you have the number of minutes to display, so that if you want to, you can select, hey, I want to go back in time 400 minutes or something like that. You can, and so you can show that window of time. Okay, let's go back to the dashboard. Let's take a look at the timer. So really quickly, you can set a timer for a certain amount of time just by using these sliders. So this will start a timer at the top of the page. You can select to shut down the grill when the timer expires. This allows you to shut down after, maybe if you want to set a cook to run for a certain amount of time, then you can do that. So I'll start the timer. We've got the timer running here, and you can see at the top of the page that we have a real-time timer counting down. You have controls to pause the timer or stop the timer entirely. Now, the timer shows up on the dashboard, and it also shows up in the history page. So just for convenience, it's shown there so you can see where you're at in your timer. All right, let's skip over the pellet log for now and take a look at the event log. So the event log is relatively straightforward. This just kind of shows you under the covers the different events that a PiFire system has logged so far. So things like starting up, setting the mode, startup mode, for example. Notifications will be in here. A timer, when you started a timer and when it's supposed to end, gets logged. These kinds of things. Errors would also be logged in here as well. It's good for debug. So very, very simple to use. And now let's take a look at the Pellet Manager. So if you click this button, it takes you into the Pellet Manager. And this is just a handy way for you to track your pellet usage. So you have currently at the top of the page what you have loaded into your machine at this time. So as you can see, just by default we have this loaded, sort of a placeholder profile. But we have the brand, the wood type, a rating that you can give it, the date that you loaded it in, and any comments that you want to make about the pellets. It's just a free-form text field. You can click here to load new pellets, and you can select a different profile. Right now we've only got the one profile. You can check the status of your pellet sensors. So this is kind of nice. If you have the pellet sensor installed, you can kind of get a notification if your pellet level drops below a certain percentage. Here you can add brands. So hey, say I want to add a brand like, I don't know, Traeger, or let's do something better. Let's go lumberjack, and add that. And now we have lumberjack as an option in our list. And the same goes for the wood types. We have quite a few wood types already here, but if you find a wood type that's not here, maybe charcoal, something like that, you can save it right there. And now we have charcoal in the list. And then you go down a little bit further, we've got our profiles editor. You can add profiles or you can edit existing profiles. So let's just take a look at this. So let's say we want to add a lumberjack brand. And since we just added the charcoal, let's go ahead and add charcoal here. And say we don't like it very much, let's put a 2-star rating here. And then on the comments, I can enter something like very smoky flavor, cheap at Walmart or something like that. And then you can add this profile, which just saves the profile without actually loading it in. Or if you're going to load your pellets right away, you can say add and load. And then it loads it out into your current loadout in your machine. So you can see there it's reflected and what the date is. And then you go down here and you've got a new profile, right? So if you ever want to reload these in the future, you can just simply reload those. And last on this page is the pellet log. This just keeps track of what pellets you've loaded in the past and kind of shows the star rating just for convenience. These are clickable, so it takes you to basically the definitions up here, so you can look at the descriptions of the comments. But if you don't like this, if you want to go delete one of these out of your log, you can do that. Since the generic alder was just a placeholder, we can delete that one and get rid of it. And there we go. It's gone from the pellet log. So that's basically it for the pellet log. Hopefully this is helpful to keep track of pellets and what you've used in the past. I think it's a pretty cool, fun feature for PiFire. Okay, let's talk about settings. There's a couple ways to get to settings. You can go and click on one of these cogs, or you can go up to the hamburger up in the corner and click on settings here. So we'll go ahead and do that. This takes us to our probe settings, and you can take a look at the different types of probe settings. I don't know if you can see the drop downs in the screen capture or not, but hopefully you can. You can select different types of profiles for each of the probes. You can also turn on and off the visibility of the food probe. So say I want to turn off the visibility of probe 1, I can do that. Now if I go back to the dashboard, you'll see that probe 1 just lists off. Now the data is still being captured in the background, but it's just not visible. So if I go to the history graph, you'll also see that probe 1 set point and temperature have been X'd out. Again, the data is still being captured, it's just not showing it to you at the moment. You can click on this and reveal it again, and so it's still there, it's just not being shown. Okay, going back to settings, we can edit the probe profiles as well. So if you get a brand new probe from Amazon or from somewhere else, you want to add it here, you can do that. We have some popular probes available already tuned, but you can also add a new profile. In there, we're not going to go over this too much in this video, it's just a high-level overview, but these are the kinds of things that you can tweak with the probes to get them working with PiFire. The Tune Probe Coefficients tool, again, we're not going to go over that in this video, but this allows you to tube the coefficients. It's kind of a nice, easy tool to help you get your probes up and running with PiFire if they're compatible. All right, grill name. This is a fun one. So you can name your grill. And what happens really is not much, but it does display the name up in the corner of or up in the top of the screen. So let's name our grill Smoky and save it. And you can see up here in the top that it's named Smoky now, and it shows you. I think it's kind of fun. All right, now we come to the work mode settings. This is kind of the meat of PiFire, as it were. First, for startup and smoke cycle settings, we have settings for the auger on time and the P mode, and this basically just sets the cycle time. Okay, so P mode will select the off time. And this is kind of using the sort of the Traeger standards here. But basically, if you select, it's showing here that we have P mode 2 selected. And what this means is that we're going to have the auger on for 15 seconds, is set here. And then we're going to have the auger off for 65 seconds. So the cycle time is 80 seconds in total. And that's kind of how it's going to dump pellets for smoke and startup. For Smoke Plus, this is basically cycling the fan so that we get a little more smoke during the cook. And we can do this by setting the fan cycle here for a specific amount of time. Right now I have it set for 10 seconds. That means the fan will be on for 5 seconds and off for 5 seconds. And it will operate this mode, cycling the fan on and off between 160 degrees Fahrenheit and 220 degrees Fahrenheit. And I actually like to keep this mode on by default. All right. For PID settings, if you want, you can go and tweak with the PID settings for the hold mode. And this is really the magic that helps the grill sort of stay locked into a particular set temperature. Out of the box, it does a pretty good job of holding temperature on a wide range of different pellet types, etc. But if you want to go mess with some of the settings, you absolutely can by tweaking these. All right, shutdown settings. You can adjust the amount of time that we're in shutdown. Right now it's defaulting to 60 seconds, but maybe that's too long for you. Maybe you want to do a shorter shutdown. Or maybe you want to do a really long shutdown to make sure you burn off all the extra pellets. Basically, in shutdown mode, you're just going to be running the fan, not going to run the auger or anything else, so that you're burning off any of that pellet dust that might make your grill unsafe the next time you turn it on. History settings, these are the settings that you will see on the history page, or that you can use for the history page. You can select things like how much history to display in minutes, how many data points you want to display, whether or not you want to clear the history on startup. This means every time you start up a cook, it will clear the history. And then auto refresh it auto refreshes the graph so that you can see it more in real time. All right, safety settings. Safety settings are pretty straightforward. Please do not rely upon the safety settings. These are here more of as convenience, but as usual, you should always be monitoring your grill for the safest conditions. But we have a couple of settings here for startup. So when we start up the grill, we want to make sure that the pellets have actually gotten ignited. So I have a minimum set temperature of 75. You may want to adjust this down especially in colder climates, because it does take a long time for the grill to start to heat up. So the grill will, if it doesn't hit 75, it'll try to reignite. That means it goes through the startup cycle again. So it keeps that igniter on, and by default we've got one reignite try. So if it doesn't get up past 75 after that first reignite cycle, then it will simply shut down the grill so that it doesn't overload the fire pot with pellets. The max startup temperature, this is if you get above 75 and then just maybe barely get above 75, and then it's caught fire, it's starting to cook. If somewhere down the lane, like an hour into your cook, or 2 hours or 3 hours, the temperature drops down below 75 again, the grill will automatically shut off. And this is to prevent, again, that fire pot from being overloaded and all your pellets just being dumped into your grill because the controller is not smart enough to shut itself off. So this feature helps shut the grill off if the fire pot goes out. Now you might want to set it to 100 degrees as a max startup temperature, just so that if you go way higher, let's say you go to 120 degrees after startup, you don't want it necessarily to shut off if it dips below 120 or maybe 150 or something like that. So this is just a way to sort of limit that. And then last but not least, we have the max operational temperature. And this is just, hey, shut the grill down if it gets too hot. And this is, can be set to whatever you're comfortable with and whatever your manufacturer says for your particular grill type. I have mine set to 550. I almost never, ever have achieved that. But, that's something I want it to do, is if it gets too hot, to shut it down. All right, pellet settings. This is if you have a pellet sensor installed. So you can set it to give you a pellet level warning if you drop below a certain percentage of pellets left in your hopper. You can also customize the full distance and the empty distance, where the full distance is probably a short amount of distance that is measured by the sensor, and then the empty distance is the max distance to the auger, basically, you would measure. Page settings, we have a simple dark mode here. I actually really like the dark mode, so I like to enable that. Notification settings, we have several different options here to notify you for things like achieving specific set point temperatures or safety controls or a timer. And so we have IFTTT, simply just need an API key here. Pushover, again, you need an API key, user keys, and a public URL can be used, it's optional. And then push bullet, we have that capability, an API key and a public URL is useful there. And Firebase can be used with our Android client that is being worked on by another user, Weberbox. So that's it for the settings page. And we can move on to the next section. Okay, and the last thing I want to show you today is the admin page. And you get there by clicking on the hamburger and clicking on admin. We have lots of things that you can do in the admin page to globally sort of configure your grill. So it's a little bit different than the settings side. First of all, you can set up debug mode, and really this just enables a more verbose event log. It's probably not needed for most users, so it's disabled, and it could impact performance because there's a lot more logging that is happening in the background. Manual controls. This is, as it says, a way for you to control the grill in a manual way. So you've got options here to turn on and off the fan, turn on and off the auger, turn on and off the igniter, and turn on and off the power, basically, that it controls all of these items. This can be useful for debugging your grill if you have any issues with any of these power items. For example, if you're having an issue with your igniter, you might want to test to make sure that it's heating up properly, so you can just manually turn that on. Also, with the fan, you could hear that obviously if it's working or not. For the auger, if you want to dump out remaining pellets out of your auger to do some maintenance on your grill, you can do that here as well. So kind of handy. So go ahead and turn that off. And we'll go back to admin page. In the data management section, we have a few new things here. Here you can back up your settings. What this is going to do when you click on it is it's going to download the a JSON file of all your settings to your local machine, but it also is going to back up to a folder on the system. So when you want to restore it, you can easily restore it from that folder, or you can upload if you want to, and I'll show you that in just a bit. Same for Pellet database. You can back up your Pellet database or restore it from an old copy. You can delete your history. This is something you can do on the history page if you want to as well. You can delete the event log. So if the event log is getting huge and you want to clear it out, you can do that. And you can also delete the pellets log. If this is something that's interesting to you, you can delete just the log part of the pellet database. And then lastly, you can delete the pellet database entirely if you want to. And the last button here is going to reset to factory settings. This is going to delete all the settings, all the pellet log, all of the event log, and history, etc. Alright, system power is pretty straightforward. You can reboot the system or shut down the system. QR code is kind of handy if you want to share the web address with somebody else. You can share this QR code. This is also useful for the Android application, I understand. Okay, just some system information. I'm running this on a Raspberry Pi 02. We have the GPIO pin information, so you can just kind of get a heads up of what GPIOs are being used for the grill itself. And we have uptime, the version, and credits and licenses if it's interesting to you. Yeah, so that's the high-level overview for the admin page. Let me just really quickly show you backup settings. Restore settings, just to kind of give you an idea. Here you can restore from a local backup. You can choose, this is the one we just saved, or you can restore from a backup file, and you can browse your local folders for a backup file. So let's just choose the one we just saved. We hit restore, and there we go. All the settings should be restored. Alright, and that is it.